Hi everyone. In this video, I will be covering the longest common subsequence problem. This is a classic dynamic programming problem, and we will tackle this in a systematic manner so that you understand how you should use dynamic programming or when you should use dynamic programming in any problem that you're given. Before we begin, thanks to Professor Georgi Guzun for the slides and the animations. Thank you so much for that. Okay, getting into the problem itself. Whenever you're handed a problem to solve, maybe in an interview or when you go into a job or you're doing a research problem or anything, the first step towards solving the problem is understanding the problem, understanding exactly what is required of the problem. For example, let's suppose that you are in a gene sequencing lab and you're given this problem of identifying how similar are two species. In this example, there is a regular frog and there's Kermit the frog. And they have certain DNA sequences, and your job is to figure out how closely related are these two sequences. Now, this is a pretty vague definition. This is a pretty vague description of the problem. So you try to make it a little bit more concrete. So then you ask the person who gave you this problem, maybe your colleague, what exactly does it mean for two species to be similar? Then they tell you that if two species are similar, their DNAs have a common subsequence which is similar. Okay, so they're saying that if you have a set of gene sequences, then if you see that there is a common pattern which is highlighted here in red, then they are pretty similar. And then there might be a score that you have to come up with for that. But the problem still remains that you need to find out how what is the longest common subsequence here. Still not mathematical enough for us to solve. So we go one step ahead and try to figure out examples, or when we apply the longest common subsequence, this is the solution that we are expecting. Okay, so first we try to understand what is a subsequence. That's important, right? Because once we understand what is a subsequence, then we try to understand what is the longest common subsequence. Similar to minimum spanning tree, when we first understood what is a spanning tree, and then we said, okay, minimum spanning tree is one with the minimum weight. So exactly like that, let's see what a subsequence is. Subsequence is not a substring, because they don't appear, one string doesn't appear exactly in that particular sequence in the other string, but a subsequence appears in the same order, meaning D has to appear after B, F has to appear after D, H has to appear after F. So as long as this ordering is satisfied, that means you have a subsequence. Okay. If X and Y are sequences, a common subsequence is a sequence that is common between the two. So that's the definition of a common subsequence. So we now kind of understand what is a common subsequence. Let's look at some examples here. In this case, if the two strings are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H and A, B, D, F, G, H, I, then the common subsequence that you can look at in both of these is BDFH, and so let's say BDFH is one, and let's say ABD is another. We could also say that DFH is another subsequence, and so on and so forth. You can come up, it doesn't have to be 3 characters, it doesn't have to be 1, 2, there's no limit on the number of characters that the common subsequence needs to have. But as such, the longest common subsequence is a common subsequence that is the longest. So that is the description of the problem, meaning given two strings, let's say it's ABCDFGH and ABDFGHI, then the longest common subsequence is the longest such string that you can come up with, such that it's a subsequence of both of these strings. Like, for example, in this case, it is ABDFGH. it's always a good idea to try and do this by hand, and try to figure out if there is some way that you can come up with a solution just by solving it by hand. So there are some examples that are provided in the description below. So try to find the common subsequences of those by doing it by hand. Okay, why is this an important problem? We want to do this because it's applicable in a lot of domains. For example, the Kermit the Frog and a normal frog example. It's a hypothetical example, but there are a lot of such problems that are actually relevant and being done right now for bioinformatics. For version control, for example, most of you have used Git for your projects. And when you want to find out what has changed between two versions, the common subsequence problem can be applied to see what has changed between the previous version and this version. So, yeah, and merging two versions. Okay, so this is the problem. How do we solve it? That is part of the next video.